An absolute value for section 8.5 is really just the distance a number is away from 0. So for instance, when you're saying, hey, what's the absolute value of 5? You're really saying, well, what's the distance that 5 is away from 0? And that is 5. And then if you go the absolute value of -5, right, well, -5 is still a distance of 5 units away from 0, so that also has a 5. A lot of people say, okay, well, an absolute value just makes whatever you have positive, which is true, it does, because a distance can only be positive. So when we're looking at an unknown, taking the absolute value of something that we don't know, x, when we say, okay, the absolute value of this is 6, well, if I plug in a 6 here, the absolute value of 6 is 6. And if I plug in a -6 here, the absolute value of -6 is 6. Basically, what that does is, by taking the absolute values off, it tells us that x can be either positive or -6, which we can use the symbol plus or minus, or my math lab might ask you to use a comma to separate the answers. If it does, then it would be 6, -6. Now we can take this and do something a little more complex with it. For instance, number 1e, we have the absolute value of x plus 4 equals 9. So again, we have the absolute value of something equals 9. So we know that the inside here can either equal 9 or a -9. And one way to express this is we can either think of this as, well, the inside can equal plus or minus 9, which is the way that I like to look at it. So the inside, x plus 4, can equal plus or minus 9. Now, plus or minus, that doesn't mean that we're just going to go ahead and subtract 4 and then we're all done. We can actually combine these terms. So I would then, from there, take this and separate it. X plus 4 equals positive 9, and x plus 4 equals -9. And then go ahead and solve individually. Here we're going to subtract 4 from each side. So we get x equals 5. And x equals -13. So what this is telling us is if we plug in 5 into this absolute value, we're going to end up with 9. So 5 plus 4 gives us positive 9. The absolute value of positive 9 is still 9, which works out. -13 plus 4 gives us -9. The absolute value of -9 is still 9, so that works out. So your answers are 5 and -13. Now, we can also do another problem that's a little more complex, right? We're going from basic to kind of a medium in complexity, and then let's go to something that's that has a little more involved, part H. That has the absolute value of 2n plus 3. Then we're adding 9 to it, and we're saying that equals 4. Now, in order to work with this, the first thing we have to do is we have to isolate the absolute value like this. The absolute value is on one side all by itself. So that's what we want to do first. In order to do that, we have to subtract 9 from each side. So we get the absolute value of 2n plus 3 equals -5. Now once you look at that, I want you to be logical first. Look at this and say, can this absolute value ever equal -5? Well, what do we know about an absolute value? An absolute value has to be positive, right? So in this case, logically, we know that this cannot happen. Double check, did we do our math correctly? We subtracted 9, 4 minus 9 gives us -5. So here, there actually is no solution, and that's perfectly fine to get that. No solution. Right? We want to be logical first. An absolute value can never be negative, let alone -5.